show. And then, of course, we're going to wrap it up by looking at the Young Creatives Awards. So much to get through this afternoon. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on. Or, of course, 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line.
The Senegalese team Aigle de la Medina are on a mission to play terrific football to collect maximum points. But DRC Queens TP Mazembe believe the only way forward is a win. Yet on another battlefield, South Africa's University of the Western Cape have a humongous task to silence North African side AS FAR Rabat. This is the Group A doubleheader of the CAF Women's Champions League. Witness the excitement of African women's football. Aigle de la Medina FC versus TP Mazembe FC, live on SABC Plus, and UWC Ladies FC up against AS FAR Rabat Ladies FC on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. This Friday, 15 November at 7 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
We are catching up now with Lebogang Sikubuane, who is a chartered public relations practitioner for the Chief Johnny Otto Mutsile More Mamogele Foundation. And the JOM Foundation is proud to present a series of November events that are celebrating the enduring legacy of Kgosi JOM More Mamogele, who was a pivotal figure in South Africa's liberation history. And yet, as the pages of history would have it, very little is known about this individual and their contributions towards advancing and advocating rights for the African. And this is why we thought, well, let's have this conversation ahead of all of those festivities. How are you doing this afternoon, Lebogang?
I'm fantastic himself.
I'm great, thank you. Let's start at the beginning. Maybe a brief background on who exactly was JOM More Mamogele, and of course the contribution that they've made towards South Africa's liberation history.
Absolutely. No, thank you. Thank you for having me. Good afternoon to yourself and to your listeners. When we talk about Kgosi Otto Mamogele, we are talking about one legend that I think should be put out there and should be known. And in the history, particularly his contribution to the South African Native National Congress, which later got to be renamed as the African National Congress, can you believe, in 1923. He was against the system of land disposition, and he also, featured in a lot of the background that paid tribute to the theme of celebrating footprints in the struggle against African colonialism and land disposition.
Yeah. Lebogang, I want to just quickly switch your line to a WhatsApp just to see if we can get a crisp line. It's just sounding a little bit hollow right now, and we want to make sure that we retain as much of the information that you're going to be sharing with us as much as we possibly can. So let's do that while we take a break.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, so to confirm then, you're saying the actual printing of the exam paper is 200 million rands only, right? And I use the word only.
Yeah, 220 million.
Okay.
Yes.
Total cost 3.6 billion rands. And you're saying that 3.6 is actually consistent in terms of what's expected of a cost. So you don't have overspending there.
Yeah, so the setting, just the process of setting question papers, you get a group of people in a room over a period of time to work out what the questions should be. Remember, we've got about 200 question papers that are set in this exam just in 2024. And for each paper, you need a group of experts who sit in a room to consider the best possible scenario, which will become a question paper for each subject for the learners in the given year.
Elijah Mslanga, the Department of Basic Education spokesperson.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM. All podcasts can be downloaded on safm.n.
Okay, we've got Lebogang back on a different line, hopefully this time a lot crisper. Yes, let's continue. Lebo, you were giving us just some background on who JOM More Mamogele was.
No, absolutely. Thank you for calling back.
Right, as I was saying, in his early times and career contributions, it spanned from youth empowerment, advocacy for education, and cultural preservation. And one of those things that, like I mentioned earlier before, it was celebrating the footprints of the struggle against colonialism and land disposition, So those were one of the things that when they formed the African National Congress at the time, that they got to be involved in the land where we situated in Rustenburg here in Betani village. That's where he was, which is formerly known as the Western Transvaal. Around in October 12, in the 1905s, the native affairs, they actually got to approve his appointment as the paramount chief to the Bakwena Bamahopa community, and as a result of his appointment, the chieftaincy of the Bakwena Bamahopa was officially passed on to him.
I see.
Yes.
And in fact, Kgosi Mamokgale was quite fondly known as the chief of Transvaal, and also spearheaded the
Absolutely.
fight against the 1913 Land Act.
Absolutely. And when you talk of the Land Act, it is that to be noted, to the national struggle against that land disposition within those borders of South Africa, it became globally known that he was the person who spearheaded against this side for the Northwest in Rustenburg, where he was now also joined by some of his colleagues, Prixley, Sieme, Alfred Mangena, and also Richard Msimang, as all the other ones. They also called a convention to other Africans to form, the National Congress, also now moving side to the side of Bloemfontein.
The unfortunate part is, there's so much that has been documented around South Africa's liberation history, but also so many people's names have been omitted from those pages of history. And from what I read, there's a great deal of dissatisfaction and disappointment as well by some family members of the late J.O.M. Morem Mamokgale, who have criticized just the limited recognition of his role in advancing some pivotal rights for South Africans.
Absolutely. And that one we cannot deny. However, we always believe in let's not look into the past, however, want to forge a better understanding and say, how can we rather fix, moving forward? How can we now celebrate, one of our unsung heroes? And I think it is also important to note, in history sometimes when people are written, some people are not written about. So it also is up to us now just why we're taking, through this baton to say we want to celebrate that life. We are looking forward, and we're not looking necessarily to say, yes, there is this dissatisfaction, but we're moving forward, and we want to forge a great legacy where we get to celebrate the life of Rem Mamokgale.
Yeah, and this comes in the form of the festival that the foundation will be hosting.
Yes, in a series of jam-packed events ranging from the 23rd of November until the 30th of November. Which on the 23rd is going to be a Lefoko Fest. Lefoko Fest is speaking to comedy, it's speaking to poetry. And if you remember back in the day, African people, or in the context rather of Africa, we used to communicate and tell our stories through painting on walls, and also poetry, and also storytelling through the fire. So we saw it befitting that the Lefoko Fest be the one thing that gets to open up, with the comedy. Some of our comedians that are going to be there is Abuti Lolo, Summary, and for your poet is going to be Mac Manaka. And it's going to be on the 23rd of November at the Rustenburg Civic Center starting at 5 o'clock. And also on the 23rd, which is also an important one, the one that is going to also open the show is going to be the memorial lecture, which is going to be heard by Professor Bismarck Chobeka, who's actually the Vice Chancellor for the Northwest University, is going to be giving the keynote address, just to unpack the life of JOM and for people to understand, give a little bit more of context, to those that do not have, the right picture to say that this is the man we're actually celebrating. And the 30th of November is going to close the shows, show of all shows, and I'm so excited. Some of the legendary artists that are going to be there is Freddy Gwala, Dalom Kids, Joe Shirimani, Mass Music, Kulichana, Douglas Musadi. The list goes on and on and on. But it's quite an interesting and jam-packed session that is going to be happening within the span of those 3 days. So I would be interested, or I would actually be excited for people just to call in and say, where do we get the tickets? The tickets can be available or can be accessed through CompuTicket.
Awesome. Let's look at, because this is sort of a culmination of an arts and cultural festival in honor, of course, of the legacy of JOM. And let's look at, art as a medium of social change. You spoke about, just the pivotal role that spoken word, oration, and even visual representation has been for Africans. And I wonder, is it still very much a tool that, is it still very much considered a tool that can drive conversation on social change and equality?
Absolutely. Because, if you look at it, communities preserve and celebrate, leaders like Jerome himself through dedicated events or educational initiatives, really, cultural programs that get to highlight achievement and the values that they embody. Hosting such events creates spaces where people can engage through, history or honor their leaders or actually learn about the past. And I like that, in an African context, I keep on emphasizing the word African because it is it's stories that I can also relate to, that sometimes through comical relief or stories, we'll be having a lot of, societal pressures or societal changes and these things that we can't talk about. So you go through, enjoy it through comedy, or you go enjoy, the harsh truths that we get to live in when you go on stage and say, oh my goodness, this is, happening. And you actually get to laugh it off and say, wow, that is actually a great point. And these are the things that we get to go through. So I do believe that these platforms necessarily also still share the very message that we're trying to endorse.
And just on a final sort of note, the importance of celebrating, but more than celebrating, on preserving these historical leaders, especially those who maybe have been forgotten from the pages of history. How important is that for this, this generation of youth to go seeking that information beyond just what is told to them in mainstream media?
That one is a very great question. As we're evolving through beyond libraries where books are hidden, and more young people are actually swaying away from that. Everyone has always got a cell phone in hand. My advice would be, let's go through, all the media, social websites, or even, www.jomfoundation.org. This is where you get some information at the touch of your hand. I know sometimes articles are written and some people never even hardly ever pick up the paper. Everything is just so digitized. So when we move with the times, we still get to have access, to that information, using how we can incorporate modern living with the way how we, source through for that information.
Yeah. Lebogang, thank you so much for the time, and we wish you the very best with this festival. That was Lebogang Sikhobuani, who is a chartered public relations practitioner for the Chief Johnny Otto Mutsile More Mamogele Foundation. And of course, they are hosting that Lifuko festival as part of the commemoration of his legacy, alongside the memorial lecture as well. And as you heard, you can go to computicket.co.za in order for you to secure yourself some tickets. Let's take a quick pause for the headline news, and then we'll come back on the other side.
Thank you, Bridget. News headlines at 1:30 on SAFM. I am Ondelambana. 4 police officers are to appear in the Nelspruit Magistrate Court in Mpumalanga for theft and defeating the ends of justice. The Mpumalanga Department of Economic Development is leading a joint raid on various shops in the Mbombela Central Business District. The multiple stakeholders operation include food inspectors, police and business regulators. And Gauteng police have refuted claims by the Westbury community in Johannesburg that there is a lack of police visibility in the area, resulting in the increase of gang-related violence. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom, reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead. in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. You are listening to The Full Circle.
All right. As we continue along with our Friday programming, we are looking at a conversation now around Empower Men Summit, which is happening. And this one is to drive change for the boy child and men with zero suicide focus. We'll find out exactly what that all entails from spokesperson for Empower Men, Joshua Mdanyelwa, joining us now on the line. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing fine. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for making the time. We appreciate it. I guess maybe firstly for some of our listeners, just a brief history on Empower Men, which is a subsidiary of Empower Works, and the kind of work that you'll undertake when it comes to these social conversations.
Yeah, I think the organization started, the platform started in 2019. We remember during the time when there was a voice that was saying men are trash. So we thought we can't sit just and let that be a narrative about men. So we created this platform so that we can have a safe space for men where they can converse, where we can be truthful to one another, where we can call each other in order, where we can be able to really redefine modern masculinity in this 21st century. Yeah.
And one always advocates, at least on this show and the platforms I've been involved in, for men to have these platforms and spaces that are exclusively for themselves in order to have conversation. And maybe if you can give us a glimpse as to the kind of impactful dialogue that is often tabled and the kind of sentiment that comes out from these gatherings with your community of men.
Yeah, I think we have very impactful topics and discussion that we have with men, especially first they said, let's talk about the man and his worth, to say what is your worth as a man, your car does not make you more manly, your clothes, but who are you without those things? Who are you without those labels? But also we also talk about man and his family, to say as a man, what do you do in this changing time? Remember, we used to say that man is a head, man is a protector. But now in these times where a woman earns more than a man, does a man loses his manhood for not being able to provide enough, and find that it is the wife that provides more than him? But also when coming to issue of protection, if my wife, she's a police woman, and there are facts that are coming in my house at night, I'm not going to call the police station. I'm going to call my wife because she has a gun. Does that make me less of a man if I call my? So I'm just saying, men are in the crossroad. We need to accept that things have changed now. We need to redefine our masculinity, that it does not depend on those things that they used to as men. But also the other topics that we're going to talk about is the future of a boy child, and to say, what is the future of the boy child? What about the boy child? How do we help a boy child? Remember, a boy child needs the affirmation of his father, but 60% of our boy child are raised without a father. They are raised by their mothers, which is a good thing. Their mothers are there standing with the boys, but we say we want to call the uncles, but also want to call men and says, go take care of your son, because your son needs an affirmation from you. Affirm his manhood, affirm his talent, affirm his dreams. He needs you, because if you don't affirm him, he's gonna join the gangs when he becomes a teenager, and they affirm stupidity, they affirm him being able to use a gun, they'll affirm all things that are not right. So also we're talking about that, to say as a man, take care of your son, But also the other topics that we also going to talk about is the issue man and his health. Many times men, they don't like going to hospitals or clinics. But maybe sometimes in clinics, it's when a man you go, they find that there are children and women, and maybe even the health workers are more women. Sometimes they don't understand our issues and our ego. Sometimes men, they don't want to go to hospital because of that. If you find a man in hospital, it might as he has been brought there by an ambulance. Maybe he was about to die, But most of the time, we self-medicate as men. But in this conference, we want to talk to men and says, in this summit, we want to talk to men and says, it is important to check yourself. It is important to love your physicality. Go check yourself, and we'll be talking about things that are health-wise, things that are affecting men, issues of mental health. We'll be also talking about those things in this conference. So this summit is for all men. It's a safe space. It's a non-judgmental space where men can voice their concerns and their issues, and there will be other organizations that will be also be there to help men and talk to them.
And you know what I think I sort of love about sometimes the hard conversations and the vulnerable conversations is that I almost feel that one comes to these platforms not necessarily needing to be armed with answers, but needing to come together with people who are willing to be vulnerable, who are willing to be raw and ask questions, because the mere gathering to ask questions, even if we come out, even if you as men come out of there with no clear plan or direction or conclusion, that comes in the asking and the interrogating and the sitting with the question open-endedly. I think at times, can be more beneficial than coming out with a clear answer.
Yeah, you're right. We call it a space of inspiration. There's space where we can ignite that fire in a man, where he can begin to take one step towards the right direction. But we also call it a space where we say an iron sharpens an iron. You might meeting a man that is having the similar problems and challenges that we have, and you can start conversing that. But what are, in these many years that we've been doing this summit, we've realized more men begin to talk, but also the organization that we work with, that they really like this platform because more men now are coming to the men's clinic. They go to other organizations that deals with men's issues. So it is a space where we ignite and spark that fire, that where men can be able to move towards the right direction.
Absolutely. For any gentleman that is interested in coming through, I know that the Empower Men is being hosted on International Men's Day. It's an actual thing, International Men's Day, which is on Saturday.
It's a real it's not the one February 14th. No, this one is the real thing. This one is happening on the 16th of November, tomorrow.
Yeah. And
we're starting a registration at 7. And I must say it's in a Mosaic Theatre in Runback. I like to say to men, come. First come, first serve. We'll get a empowerment T-shirt if you come in time, and there will be more men there. So we just would challenge more men to come. We also want to challenge our sisters. Tell your men to come and join us in this conversation. It's a beautiful space. It's a space of impact. It's a space of change. So tomorrow on the 16th of November at Mosaic Theatre will be there. So if men can show up, just show up there. Take your bras and says, let's go and talk to other men. We'll really appreciate that.
Wonderful. And when he says take your bras, he doesn't mean the 34C types. He means as in take your brothers and show up. Because I saw the men who work in my team raise their eyebrows, and I'm like, men will be boys. So we had to do that clarity.
No, Action will be having bras. Let them come and see those bras.
Lovely
I think that
stuff.
would be a nice.
Joshua,
I think more men will come if we tell them that they are bras.
Absolutely. Thank you for the conversation. That was Joshua Daniela, who's the spokesperson for Empowerment. And of course, that gathering is happening. It's happening tomorrow, the 16th of November at Mosaic in Fairlands. And you can go through and reserve your seat so you can be part of the conversation and even broaden your horizons as a man. Because sometimes, really, if you gather with people who challenge your perspective, who share different ideology, who've had a different life experience, you can walk out of a room, challenging your own thinking, or perhaps being introduced to new ways of thinking, new perspectives that you never thought about, and you might find that they actually work for you. Let's take a quick pause and we'll come right back and get into a different topic.
The Chill Zone with Bertha Charuma.
You do a lot of work of fighting for justice, especially in the arts arena.
Yeah.
Why?
That's a big deal. You know, it really is, it's heartbreaking, Bertha, to see what is happening in our industry. And people think that we are a well-established production industry as a country. We are producing lots of very popular titles. Our content is being seen around the world. All that may be true, but the one glaring failure, the one absolutely unforgivable failure in our creative industry is that we remain unregulated.
That's Jack Devnarine, South African actor. Most of us know him as Rajesh Kumar on Isidingo.
Bertha Charuma on SAFM. All podcasts can be downloaded on safm.co.za. Stages, pages, screens, and more on The Full Circle.
All right, let's catch up with Eben Kien now, talking all things indigenous languages around the Penduring Indigenous Language Imbizo, and it's taking place come next Tuesday, the 19th of November. Why am I saying September? Of November, in celebration of the significance of indigenous languages in South Africa. How are you doing this afternoon, Eben? They're giving me the sign of they are connecting, and I don't know if they are connecting. Are you all right?
Good in yourself, Bridget.
I'm great. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time. I guess let's just rewind it back to folks who are not maybe familiar with the Penduran indigenous language Imbizo, which is really the sort of the build-up event towards the Penduring Awards. Give us some history and some background.
Fantastic. So the Penduring Awards have been around for 29 years, and it rewards the best creative work that's executed in indigenous languages. So all of our indigenous languages in South Africa, if you made an advert, you published a book, the design can be entered. If you're a designer and you designed a new piece of work, that can all be entered into the Penduring Awards, which takes place on Thursday. But we've also recognized that it's everybody's responsibility to look at the creative promotion of indigenous languages in South Africa. So we started the Indigenous Language Imbizo in 2022 with the idea of bringing different kinds of stakeholders together. So it's the government, they're also there, but it's also academia, it's normal people, it's poets, it's book writers, it's authors, it's everybody who is involved in the creative content that is created in indigenous languages, and promoting this so that we young kids grow up with careers in mind where they can use their indigenous languages. That it's not only something that we think of as heritage, as something of the past, but something that's part of our DNA as South Africans. It's part of our identity, our indigenous languages.
And I mean, the conversation around indigenous languages and heritage oftentimes is quite emotive and quite heated, and we see everything that's going on, even surrounding the Bella Bill. Part of the sideline conversation was, well, whose indigenous languages and whose heritages are more important than the other, and we find ourselves in that sort of intersection now, where we have to interrogate what that means to us as South Africans.
And I think we need to recognize that we all carry the same challenges when it comes to our indigenous languages. We've got a lot of different indigenous languages, but we can learn from each other and from each other's experiences in struggling for our languages, or making sure that our languages, that we've got the freedom to express ourselves in those languages. And so the Indigenous Language Imbizo is really an opportunity for different people to come together and share. We are also in the middle of something called the UNESCO Decade of Indigenous Languages, which is a global recognition of the fact that as globalization happens, often everybody becomes English, and we don't want that. We want to celebrate our languages. We want to express ourselves in our languages. They come to us naturally. It's in our blood, and it's part of our lifeblood as human beings and identity.
And someone might, play the devil's advocate, Eben, and say, well, why is this still such an important conversation given how much we all have become, integrated globally, and we've chosen this very English as a medium of communication, even though it's not necessarily the most spoken language in the world.
I think it's a very important thing because we talk about indigenous languages, and the language we choose to talk about these languages is often in English so that we all understand each other. So it's not an either-or situation. It gives richness to the discussion. When we can celebrate our stories, our mythologies, we find new ways to express ourselves in the arts using our indigenous language. It's just so much more exciting than if everybody became American.
What are some, this is obviously, these are ongoing conversations with the Penduran, leading up to the Penduran, and with all the various stakeholders. And I wonder, what have been some of the common thread themes in as far as the challenges, particularly for us Africans, to really center our indigenous languages?
For sure. So the challenge is that we all learn and go to school in English these days, but not to leave our languages at the door, but to find ways of bringing our languages to enrich the world that we live in. One of the opportunities we see is this whole notion of technology, because technology can help us to translate things into several languages at the same time. Now, if you think about, we've got 13, we've got a lot of indigenous languages in South Africa that are official indigenous languages. Now, if we want every person to be served in their language, it's a little bit like an ATM where you've got the option and you can change it to your language to talk to you. So we think technology can actually help a lot to make it customizable for the end user to be served in their language or to receive certain things in their language. And so the notion of the intersection of technology and language is a very interesting one. There's also the notion of artificial intelligence. My experience is that so my first language is Afrikaans, but I'm not the best at writing Afrikaans, and AI can actually help me to write better Afrikaans. So I think robots can help us, or machines can help us, to engage in new ways with our indigenous languages. I don't think that the internet or AI kills indigenous languages. I think that it opens up new opportunities for us.
And in fact, that was going to be my next thought to you, is the place of our indigenous languages in this ever-moving and ever-evolving digital world. If we've struggled to sort of incorporate it into mainstream, how much easier or how much harder is it going to be now that we're moving into a digital dimension?
Sure. I think it can actually make it easier for us. It's hard to be understood when everybody around you don't speak the same language as you do, but when we use machines to help us to understand each other or to serve each other in different languages, it becomes the diversity actually becomes more manageable. This year we started with something called the Indigenous Tech Challenge, where we put out a challenge to young developers to come up with new apps that would help people to engage in new ways. So we'll also see some of the finalists of that doing speed pitches at the indigenous language in Bizo, and one of them will walk away with 30,000 rand to help develop the app that they've started developing. So we're very excited, and I think what makes this very meaningful is the intersection of different people. So the academia, UJ is very involved in it, both through the Johannesburg Institute of Advanced Studies and their multilingual services office, as well as the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture will be participating. There's participants from the Department of Forestry and Fisheries, so looking at languages and the environment. There are people from the coding world, there are technologists, there are business people. So it's really, there's poets, as I've said before. So it's really everybody who thinks about this area of indigenous languages and their role in society will be part of this discussion. Obviously, people also from the media. We've got we've got Channel Africa that will be there. We've got the SABC that will be there. The SABC does the most when it comes to our indigenous languages. If you look at the variety of radio stations that they operate. So we're super excited about everybody coming together, and this is really towards what we call a multi-stakeholder partnership, because we don't think that we can come up with good solutions if we leave it to one government department to come up with the solutions. We all need to work together, and we all need to be heard in this process. And that's why a multi-stakeholder partnership is probably the best chance we have at seeing a rich tapestry of our languages in practice.
Absolutely. And as we wrap it up, just a quick touch on the Penduring Awards, which then follow shortly after on the 21st of November.
Yes. So that's very exciting this year. The awards show, again, is a beautiful celebration of South Africanness. We've got incredible theatre makers, Momo Matsunyane. We've got one of the singers from The Brother Moves On. We've got our theatre director, Ilana Soyer. And all of these people work together to put on a beautiful celebration of South Africa's indigenous languages. And after that, there's a beautiful celebration on the lawns at UJ, sponsored by Babylon's Touring. And we've got brilliant sponsors that all help to make this thing a reality. But just maybe for people who want to come to the Imbizo on Tuesday morning, it is free to the public. It's open. You go onto the Penduring website, Pendoring, Penduring, and you'll see the indigenous language Imbizo link there. You register a ticket for free, and you come along at the UJ Arts Centre in Auckland Park. And then on Thursday night, as you said, is the Penduring Awards itself, which is slightly more for the industry, but you can, as the public, also buy a ticket for that one. The one on Tuesday is for free. For Thursday night, unfortunately, you have to buy a ticket to be there. But both of them is a celebration of everything that's creativity in indigenous languages.
Wonderful. Eben, Kian, thank you so much for the time. And of course, that was Eben talking all things the indigenous language Imbizo. It's happening on Tuesday the 19th. As you heard, you can go to the Penduring website if you'd like to be a part of those conversations and be in the room. Thursday the 21st of November is then the Penduring Awards. Let's take a quick break here, and then we'll come back and we'll get into the Hugh Fest.
The SAFM playwriting competition is back. After receiving hundreds of entries last year from South African writers of different ages and ethnic groups sharing their stories, now the time is yours. It's your story. You decide. SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound, the theatre of the mind, and to create a 1-hour radio play in English. Get writing now and submit your play before the 3rd of February 2025 for a chance to win one of 3 large cash prizes. For more information, visit safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Let's look at the Hugh Fest now, which celebrates South Africa's heritage with a diverse lineup, and they are returning to Nyrox. It's going to be an incredible one. The Nyrox Sculpture Park come the 1st of December, which is a Sunday. Pula Twala joins us now, who's Bra Hugh's daughter and the chair of the Hugh Masigele Heritage Foundation. How are you doing?
Hi, Bridget. I'm good, thanks. And how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you very much. And thank you for the time. Let's get straight into it. I mean, it's wonderful that we're still celebrating the Hugh Fest and the legacy of Bra Hugh Masigele, and the festival now being in its 11th year.
Yes. We are very excited, I think the most important thing about the Hugh Fest is the fact that it was created by him, Bra Hugh. So we've been happy to be able to, although we're not with him on this side of life, continue his legacy through the Hugh Fest, which essentially is to celebrate, as you said, South African music, heritage music, and celebrate intergenerational conversations. We have a lot of collaborations between, the more seasoned artists with the younger up-and-coming artists. So it's an honor for us to be able to carry this on without him here to kind of hold our hands, but we think we sat at his feet long enough to be able to know how to do this.
And the one thing I loved about Bra Hugh, and I'm at pains to remind South Africans every time we play his songs, and deliberately always choosing the songs where he collaborates, is because he was very deliberate about this intergenerational exchange and very open to young artists tapping into him and him tapping into them, and letting it be a two-way, just a two-way partnership of dialogue.
Yeah, very much, and I think the importance of it is what most musicians I've heard, fighting for is just not to be boxed. It's not to be placed into one genre, but to be allowed to just make music, And he was great at that because he comes from a very rock star life, which we've all read about, right into being able to kind of be like an elderly, but young at heart musician who then just loved collaborating with young artists. I mean, we know his relationship with Thandiswa Mazwai, with Mafiki Zolo, with Black Coffee, and the list goes on. Like there was a young girl called Corlia, who was an Afrikaans girl that, he brought up in the industry and collaborated with him. So he's been a part of even him as a young man, just always being a collaborator and loving other people's work and reworking other people's work. He was, a great collaborator with Kaifa Semenya and Jonas Gwangwa when they were equally peers, and continued to re-record those compositions because he admired them so much, of Miriam Makeba. So I think he definitely was a great advocate of that, of being a lifetime student and also being able to impart whatever it is that you have, that you know and can share with other people, even outside of music, with Nelson Makamo, with Laduma of Makhosa. He's got, great stories and relationship with them outside of music and outside of, I would say, also the public eye, just availing himself to be there, to be somebody who's able to not so much open doors, but impart knowledge as to how best it is to, be out there in the world and to present your art.
Absolutely. It is the old people cheat sheet, as I always say.
Yes, yes.
Extracting that cheat sheet from them. So come Sunday, the 1st of December, a beautiful setting at Nyrock Sculpture Park for a wonderful day. What can folks look forward to from the 2024 edition of the Hugh Fest?
We are excited to continue, as I said, the intergeneral conversations between the artists. So we have Kaya Mahlangu, who's a very celebrated saxophonist from South Africa, and he'll be collaborating with one of our proudest products of actually the foundation, who's Nhlanhla Mahlangu, who is also a saxophonist, and he's also our first graduate of the Hugh Masekela Heritage Scholarship, which took 7 students to New York in Manhattan School of Music to study 4-year degrees in music. So he's our first graduate. So we're very proud that not only has he graduated and done so well, but that he'll be performing at the Hugh Fest, and that Brakaya, will have him under his wing to elevate him and to teach him and for them to learn from each other. And then we have Brajon Selulwane, who is based in Botswana and was also performing with Hugh for many years, since about the 80s.
Yeah.
And he'll be performing with a young R&B singer called Daito Seiko, who is also from Botswana. And those are the 2 big collaborations that we have. And then in terms of like our heritage, we've included the Mahotela Queens, which we're very excited about to be able to put them up at the Nyrock Sculpture Park.
Yeah.
And then we have somebody like Zoe Mudicha, who I think is kind of like, Mahotela Queens would have given birth to people like Zoe Mudicha, even though they have a more futuristic, contemporary, but they still remind us of ourselves. And then our excitement is also TKZ, who last year celebrated 25 years of the biggest album, Halloween. So to have them on the 1st of December saying Hello December is quite exciting for us. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So so that's what will be happening. Aside from the music, we have African culinary. We'll have like food from like Ghanaian, Ethiopian, South African cooks there. So it will be that kind of feast. And we will be also having merchandise. We've had a collaboration with Nelson Makamo. We've got t-shirts of beautiful sketches that he made of Hugh, which we will be selling at the festival.
Wow.
And so Masekela times Makamo t-shirts is what we're calling them. We have his book Still Grazing. We have some of his vinyls that have just come out on vinyl. So it will be a feast of much more than music.
It's a lot on the agenda and definitely sounds like a good day out. Pula Twala, thank you so much for the time. And Pula is, of course, Bra Hugh's daughter and the chair of the Hugh Masinga Heritage Foundation. 1st of December at the Nyrox Sculpture Park. That's where you can go to be a part of the Hugh Fest 2024. All right, it's time for us to get into the 2 o'clock news. Ondela is standing by to bring you all that's happening on the news cycle.
Thank you, Bridget. Top stories at 2. Police officers to appear in court for theft and raids conducted on various shops in Mpumalanga. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good day. 4 police officers are to appear in the Nelspruit Magistrates Court in Mpumalanga for theft and defeating the ends of justice. It is alleged that the detectives searched a house of an alleged paymaster of illegal miners in Barberton and confiscated 1,800,000 rand. However, the money was not booked in as the exhibit. Instead, they arrested and kept the son of the alleged paymaster in police custody without opening a case. Hawk spokesperson in Mpumalanga, Dineo Sekotodi, says the police officers in question later handed in only 200,000 rand of the money seized from the house.
Crime intelligence was summoned to the police station. On their arrival, they phoned the police officers to come back to the police station. Upon their return, they produced the amount of 200,000 rand, which they alleged was found at the paymaster's house. The complainant, who is the son of the paymaster, opened a case of theft of cash against the 4 police officials. The 4 police members were arrested, charged, and detained at the Nelspruit police cells.
The Mpumalanga Department of Economic Development is leading a joint raid on various shops in the Mbombela Central Business District. The multiple stakeholders operation includes food inspectors, police and business regulators. They are inspecting the shops to assess compliance with regulations and hygiene protocols for food handling in light of the recent outbreak of foodborne illnesses affecting mainly learners in schools. The Provincial Economic Development MEC Makosazane Masilela provides details on their findings so far.
One which I found which is not good is that they are sleeping inside the shop and also washing inside the shops and hanging their clothes inside the shop. And you could see the hygiene is not up to a standard. And also we found goods that have expired, and some of them you could see the barcode, they might be changed, and some of them they don't have barcodes.
Gauteng police have refuted claims by the Westbury community in Johannesburg that there is a lack of police visibility in the area, resulting in the increase of gang-related violence. Some locals say they live in fear and are forced to stay indoors from 6 p.m. every evening for fear of being caught in the crossfire during the ongoing turf war between rival gangs. Gauteng Police Commissioner Tommy Mtombeni believes there is sufficient police in the area.
I can confirm that the police visibility is there, but it's unfortunately we cannot be on each and every corner of the street. Obviously, I hope you understand that. But the other thing which is critically so is that we're having the Gauteng traffic wardens. You'll find that you are in this space, the police, they are on the other side.
The lead investigator in the Senzo Mayua murder trial, Brigadier Bongani Ginida, says accused 4, Mthokoziseni Mapisa, was regarded as a suspect by the initial investigating team probing the murder. However, that investigation did not yield results. Ginida is being cross-examined by the defense in the Pretoria High Court. Mapisa and 4 others are on trial for Mayua's murder. Ginida says the investigation was initially centered around accused 1 and 2. However, the names of the other accused came up in various witness statements.
What I knew when I was talking to Constable Zongo and his father, of course, was about 1 and 2. What was also contained in the docket, what I knew, but I had not approached that the suspect, is that insofar as the docket is concerned, accused 4 was cited as a suspect, by the previous investigating team. The first investigation team is that he was once a suspect. They pursued him, but they didn't make headways. And that information, according to the investigation diary, was coming from the father of the deceased, where he received this information that accused for may be involved. But it seems the first investigation team didn't succeed in linking it.
In news further afield, areas of northern Honduras are experiencing heavy rain and flooding as tropical storm Sara moves along the country's Caribbean coastline. The U.S. National Hurricane Center has warned of life-threatening and catastrophic flash flooding as well as mudslides. It's warned neighboring countries in Central America to expect similar conditions as Storm Sara moves across the Gulf of Mexico. The president of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, says emergency services had been activated but told people to stay away from flood-prone areas and seek shelter. Recapping the top story, 4 police officers are to appear in the Nelspruit Magistrates Court in Mpumalanga for theft and defeating the ends of justice. I am Ondelambana for SAFM News. Headlines at 2:30.
The Senegalese team Aigle de la Medina are on a mission to play terrific football to collect maximum points. But DRC Queens TP Mazembe believe the only way forward is a win. Yet on another battlefield, South Africa's University of the Western Cape have a humongous task to silence North African side AS FAR Rabat. This is the Group A doubleheader of the CAF Women's Champions League. Witness the excitement of African women's football. Aigle de la Medina FC versus TP Mazembe FC. Live on SABC Plus and UWC Ladies FC up against AS FAR Rabat Ladies FC on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. This Friday, 15 November at 7 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game. Specsavers now looks after your hearing as well as your vision with Specsavers Audiology. With 60 stores and counting, we are South Africa's largest audiology group. For a limited time only, buy 1 rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right. Buy 1 rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. Find your nearest store at specsavers.co.za. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Shankana elu ante pisale rato haradi pula lidi fifo ante pisale rato tisi nako isikai Shankana raile muritana meme puo isikai matale olaile mudisana bona heke haibula homudita Hari hutle, bona heke, haibula, homudita, hari hutle, irato li fedile, ke kopari homudibo elesake, irato li fedile, ke kopari homudibo elesake, homutena, hadibo elesake, homutena, hadibuele sake Pililin kathula Irinkili kokele Mushankana yena Unea kupile mohope wa mneti Alebala fono Hakaka haracheti Auka fuma na mulaita Jomewe ikaba kikaeta jang Bona heke haibula homudita hari hutle Bona heke haibula homudita hari hutle Irato li fedile ke kopari homudibo elesake Irato li fedile ke kopari homudibo elesake Homutena Hadibuele sake Homutena Hadibuele sake pari como divo elesake Lirato li fedile Keko pari como divo elesake Homo tena Hadibo elesake Homo tena Hadibo elesake
All right, it's just gone 10 past 2 o'clock and we're hanging out with a singer-songwriter, Leah Maley joins me now. She's in studio today, so today she'll give me the right pronunciation, she'll give me the meaning. Lerato li fedile is the name of the song. The first time I heard the song of yours, it was on International Radio Day. And I happened to be downstairs broadcasting from Radio 2000 with David, and he played the song. It took me off guard. And he was like, okay, back announce the song and give us some info. I was like, Anyas. And then we exported it here, and ever since then we've been playing it on the show.
Oh my goodness, the fact that you remember that moment for me is so exciting.
It's a beautiful song.
Thank you.
Beautiful song. How are you, Mama?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. So pretty. Okay, tell me more.
All right, so it is Leomile.
Leomile.
Yes.
Oh, like Leomile.
Yes, like Leomile.
Leomile.
Kasesotho, okay. It means it is dry.
Yes, good. When you said Leomile.
Yes, when I break it down.
Leomile,
right.
Like it's dry. Okay.
Yes, it's a name that's given to rainmakers. It comes from a phrase or a proverb that says Leomile ledolo, which means that the thunder is dry. It's a poetic way of saying that we are in a dry season.
Yes.
But therefore it is given to someone who then brings rain and restoration.
I love it. Okay, so now we've had two conversations on the show around the significance and meaning of our African names, and the circumstances surrounding that name. So I'm going to be intrusive because names speak a lot.
Right.
So what were you restoring?
That's very interesting because I come from this lineage of women who I believe were artists, but because of the time that they lived in, were not necessarily able to practice it in the way that they would have liked to. My mother is a singer. My grandmother is a singer. Obviously, they would sing in church and in these different places, but only as an adult did my mom actually share with me that she wanted to be a professional singer, but it was just so not viable.
Yeah.
So in some ways, I do feel like I am restoring a sense of agency and creativity within this maternal lineage of mine. But I do also feel like from a more kind of like a patriotic standpoint, we had rainmakers. We had people like Nkhono Manzo, but that's our great rainmaker in Lesotho. And I do think that part of the work that I do is to also restore, or rather to guide us on this path of remembering. Because I do think that in order to look forward, we must look back, Sankofa. And so I think I'm restoring, I'm archiving, I am, championing language and all of the things that define us so that we can redefine ourselves.
I love it. I really love it. No, I really do. Genuinely so. I really love it.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about you as well. Now that we're looking at the heritage and lineage. So from what I understand, born and bred in Masuru, right?
Yes.
All right. And then give us some background. Leomile is a young girl in Masuru, which I've never been to Lesotho, by the way.
Oh, no.
I know.
It is such a beautiful place. I mean, I grew up in Maseru, which is essentially the city.
Yeah.
And it's the less beautiful part of the country because obviously you know what happens to cities.
Yes.
But even then, Maseru is still I love the infrastructure of it. I love how there's mountains peeking from the back of buildings in town. But obviously, when you're growing up, your childhood is normal, because it's the only childhood you know.
Yes. Right?
Yeah, but now I realize that I was somewhere in between, being in a city and therefore already kind of being urbanized, but also because Lesotho, there is it's not just that we're completely surrounded by South Africa. I do feel like there is a special kind of incubation that, Lesotho has experienced. And so I do think that there are ways in which I was just closer to certain values of community and Ubuntu. I think even in South Africa, the further away from cities you are, the more you find that culture is retained, right? Because we're not so much people are not trying to be global citizens as much in like the villages and stuff. But it was a balance between like I'm a Cartoon Network girl, but also like we play outside as kids and like we get lost and get home at 6 and like it's safe and no one's really like wandering. So I think it was a good balance that prepared me, I guess, for where we were going, but still put me somewhere in between where I'm still retaining and connecting to our history.
I love it, and the love of music. I mean, you mentioned the sort of the female lineage in your family who are innately creatives by the spirit of their birth and deprived because life had to happen in the context of the times that they were growing up in. So when do you decide, or when do you awaken to the fact that you are creative, and in fact this is the journey that has been intended for you?
I really do. I really, first of all, have to say that I think it's a calling because it's a thing that I really tried to escape. One of my favorite artists, Zoo, has a song called Nguloyam. She's a Xhosa lady, but she's talking about her art as this kind of illness that has possessed her. And I think I went to varsity wanting to study film, but then along the way I took a music elective. And just as I was doing that, I started to think, oh my goodness, this might be what I'm supposed to be doing. I'd been singing, I'd been songwriting since I was a child, but I was very, again, like my mother, I didn't really see music as a viable career. I had already been shaped in a certain way or molded in a certain way to believe that, certain things represent success and others don't. And I just didn't think it was very feasible, to be honest with you. So in varsity, I took a music elective and my life just changed. I realized, I felt it in my spirit that I had to go in that direction.
Yeah. It's interesting that, I mean, essentially you wanted to explore one form of creativity, which other people might also argue that their parents saw it as a non-viable way of making a living.
I agree.
And here you were going, well, actually, this is the more sturdy of the
I do think it's very comical, like film and music, come on.
Right? I mean, is that a skill, though? You went on to graduate? And
No. I redirected within my course. So initially I thought I was going to go in the directing and writing, and then by the end of first year you get to decide. So I went the music route.
Okay, so just full on music and dropped the other elements of creativity. All right, because then I was going to ask you, if that sort of video flair still comes out, but I'm sure it still comes out even in the work that you do, that eye of a director and a videographer.
I do think so. Like every time I work with videographers or editors, they actually compliment me and say, and I only had a year of training, but I also think it's kind of innate. Seriously, the last editor I was working with was I'm not taking it back because I had the ideas and I was just no, cut it here. You see the flow. So I think it's still retained somewhere.
But that also says something about an artist, no? When an artist sort of steers the direction of their career, in various ways, and you're involved in the process from various angles. I think sometimes it's a lost art. We've had, artists of your generation, some of them who've sat in that seat, and they really just focus on the element of writing the music and performing it. And they forget the other elements of the career.
I don't know if you've seen the artwork for my latest EP or for the poster of the event I have on Sunday, but I am not leaving the visuals behind. I'm going all out, full on. I guess it's just part of how I love the whole experience, or I love to tell the story from different vantage points.
Talk to me about writing, and you've got many sort of influences from Miriam Makeba to so many other people, Sankomota, Abonina Simone, which is quite the basket of music. Talk to me about your sort of process of writing music and what goes into that for you.
I was reflecting on that just the other day because I'm friends with someone who's in the visual art space, and because of her I've kind of become more interested in visual art. And I think when I was I was at the gallery and they were talking about self-portraiture, I started to think like music is a form of self-portraiture. I really think it's a self-study, and I think like seeing it that way has also liberated me, because I just know that as humans we are having like similar experiences, and there are people that are going to connect to whatever it is that you are attempting to unearth in your self-portraiture. So as a result, I allow those influences to all come through. I don't feel bound to the Miriam Makeba influence or to the Janelle Monáe influence. I have honestly just made a decision and internally allowed myself to explore and write whatever comes and honor that that's what needs to come.
Let's take a quick pause here. It's just gone 20 past 2 o'clock. We're going to take a quick ad break and then we come back on the other side and continue our conversation.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Edo Queens of Nigeria want to graduate out of Group B with a distinction against reigning champs Mzansi's Mamelodi Sundowns ladies. However, Banyalaba Style believe the full-time score will confirm why they are the African queens of the beautiful game. This is the CAF Women's Champions League. The West battles it out with the South. Moses Aduku versus Jerry Chabalala. Witness the excitement of African women's football. Edo Queens versus Mamelodi Sundowns ladies. The Saturday 16 November at 7 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
We are catching up with singer-songwriter and composer Leomile joins us in studio. We're getting to know her a little bit better and, of course, get all intimate around her music, her life, her heritage, her family, and she is live on her Instagram at the moment as well whilst we are live streaming. And we had to tell her to because someone on her Instagram prompted her to share the story around the hat that is featured on her latest EP cover. And so we don't like to have the good conversations off air. We prefer them on air. So clue us all in the story of the hat.
Thank you for stopping me. The story of the hat is that it's a sombrero that my father bought in the US when he was studying like 30 years ago. Okay. And obviously as kids we were quite fascinated by it, but there was no real purpose to it, you know. Like you see it, you're like, oh, this is such a cool big hat, right? And then it's in storage for like 29 years or whatever. And so when we were ideating around this EP cover, we were on Pinterest and we saw some big hats with tassels, and I was like, I think I know a hat that could work. Yeah. And I literally asked them, because I was here in Johannesburg, and I asked them to transport it to me here so we could try, and we put the tassels and it was just the perfect hat. And I find that to be a really like poetic moment when I think about just timing, and especially how we have these anxieties around when things should happen and how they should happen. And this idea that like this hat was in storage or just sitting there for 30 years, and then 30 years later it becomes this like seminal moment on my EP cover, and it kind of connects me to this history with my father, but also just it feels like it's telling me to be okay with not knowing how things come together, because they do.
Oh, I like that. Thank you to the follower on Instagram for prompting that conversation around the hat. And, you know, as you talk about sort of the significance of the hat and that ancestral connection, I know Janelle Monáe is one of the folks that you say you find inspiration from. And I remember she was asked once upon a time why she wears black and white when she still wore black and white as her identity, her visual identity. And she said because she comes from a lineage of workers. Her family had been, you know, service people, janitors and train drivers and cleaners of schools, and that's been her lineage. People who put on a uniform every day to go perform a task of service that other people perhaps might feel is demeaning or lacks dignity. And so for her, when she wore that black and white monochromatic, whatever it is, it was a representation of her being of service, her honoring the uniform and all of those ancestors who had to wear a uniform in order for her to realize her dreams. And also coming to her art with reverence and respect, because once it's on, it triggers that connection in her to say that it's not just about me. It's about my entire family.
Right.
I
love that story very much.
How do you not know that?
No, I know it. you can quiz me on Janelle Monáe right now. I'm ready.
You're ready.
Yeah.
Oh no, things we love to hear. So when you look into the crystal ball, when you look into the crystal ball of your future and into the crystal ball of music, what picture lays there for you? I'm not going to ask what the goal is, in 10 years time, because goals forever shift and change.
Right.
But the vision that you hold for yourself.
I think I've always, I have always loved people who kind of go against the grain, or people who, because I do think it takes courage to go against the grain. And when I see artists kind of persevering and honoring the thing that they feel needs to be expressed versus what might be popular at the time, I find that to be very inspiring. And so for me, this latest project, for instance, this EP, I found it quite liberating, because before this EP, I think people maybe associated me as an Afro soul artist, and nothing wrong with that, because that was the context that they had. But this is so sonically different, and I hope that for myself, that I can always just honor where spirit is guiding me. Like I'm already working on a new project right now, and it's so different from the one that I'm working on. So I want to feel a sense of freedom within my creativity, and to never feel like I'm being steered by external forces. And I think obviously with that, I hope that when I honor that, the universe will continue to support me with abundance, so I can continue to create. I have visions of creating like a whole retreat center where artists can be taken care of and create the work that they need to create. But for now, it's just one step at a time, and if I keep showing up, I am seeing abundance and just beautiful things. And to keep connecting, music connects us to people. It connects us to ourselves first when we create the art, but there is such a profound connection that comes from people receiving it and feeling mirrored by it and feeling connected to you. And it keeps the magic in my life alive, so I hope to keep doing it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, listen, are you still, by the way, with It's Alt Black, right? Msaki's label?
Yes, absolutely. It's somewhere in between a label stable community, and we don't really like to call it a label, because it really did start out as Msaki just having gone through this indie journey and understanding how much support independent artists need, but also realizing that the people with the most potent stories seem to be the most under-supported, and really feeling a need to be I kind of managed to maintain my integrity but still break through into the mainstream, and I want to be able to use and leverage this to support artists who I really believe in. So I'm still very much part of them. There's a WhatsApp group, there's an email thread going right now because we're planning my show. So yes, we're working together, and I'm such a fan of her vision and the fact that she's living it out, not just speaking it.
Yes, yeah. And I think what you just said a moment ago speaks also to how she's sort of charted her career and the ability to not box oneself and just redefine yourself for yourself to your own integrity. Let's talk about the new EP now. What can folks look forward to?
The EP is out already, so people can delve into it, and it's I guess it's a folk, alternative, Afro-folk EP. It's very much stripped down. I worked with Tessa Lily, a friend of mine who's also a guitarist. And it's very much vocals and guitars. Yes, there's other instruments, but I do think it's very lush and has strings and vocals and guitars. And it's I call it an ode to rebirth and self-renewal. So I'm going through the story. I'm reflecting through the story of how a situationship, as the youngins would call it, kind of brings me to this point of self-realization. And of course, that's not like the final destination. I believe like we're constantly in these cycles of rebirth. So when I say self-realization, I don't mean like Buddha guru, but I mean that like going through a relationship and finally understanding what it was there to teach you, and then being able to honor that that's its life cycle and it has ended, but being very honest and raw about all the different emotions that are experienced within that, especially with our tendency to want to hold on to things and to want like relationships to validate us.
Ooh, all right. So we'll leave it on that depth note with Leo Meli. Thank you so much for the time. It's been wonderful getting to know you. We wish you nothing but the very best, awards upon awards and success upon success.
Bridget, I have to plug my show though. People must come to my show.
Okay, you got 20 seconds.
Okay, on Sunday at the Untitled Basement in Brampton. Please, I'm going to be with an 8-piece ensemble sharing my work, my latest work, and my whole repertoire. I would love to see you there. It's going to be lush and beautiful and wholesome.
Sunday, Untitled Basement. It's a wonderful spot, by the way. That's the date that you have. It's just gone 2:30. Ondela standing by with the headline news.
Thank you, Bridget. In the news headlines, the bail application of diamond dealer Louis Liebenberg's wife Desiree has been postponed to Thursday next week. The DA in KwaZulu-Natal says the go back to Bombay slur made by an unidentified councillor at a Tekwini full council meeting last week was a vicious and calculated attack against the South African Indian community. And 4 police officers are to appear in the Nelspruit Magistrate Court in Mpumalanga for alleged theft and defeating the ends of justice. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM.
And welcome to Nali Bali. Dancing is a fantastic exercise for children of all ages. It increases coordination, muscle tone, and helps improve one's mood. Children of all ages have something to gain from dancing, from preschoolers to tweens. Children who exercise have a better outlook on life. They have higher self-esteem and feel more energetic, confident, and happier than those who are inactive. Dancing for us as children strengthens our lungs and muscles by increasing our oxygen intake and helping to build stamina. It also helps to prevent them from getting sick. It doesn't have to be professional dancing. Just get up and move your body when you hear the music. Today's story is called Giraffe Cannot Dance, written by Lorato Trock. But before we listen to today's story, let's all get up and dance! Every year, to celebrate the beginning of summer, Nogwaja the rabbit and Piri the hyena held a wonderful party. All the animals hoped that they would be invited. Tutwa the giraffe had never been invited to any of these parties. That's why she was very excited when she received an invitation from Nogwaja and Piri.
I will have to take a bath and look very smart for this party,
Tutwa told her parents.
We are so happy for you, Tutwa. You must enjoy the party. Now go and get ready. You don't want to be late.
Her mother said. Tutla set off to the party.
Nogwaja and Piri have never invited me to their party before.
Tutla said to herself,
"Oh, I am going to be the best guest ever. I want to make sure they'll invite me to their party again next year."
When Tutla arrived at the park where the party was being held, she could not believe her eyes. The trees around the park looked so beautiful. Blue, orange, pink, green and red lights trickled in the branches and reflected off the surface of the stream that ran through the park. It was spectacular. Under the tree stood a long table with delicious food. There was sweet green grass, wild fruit, juicy leaves, meat, and many other dishes for the animals to feast on.
"Is that the dance floor?"
Tutla whispered when she saw a big open space in the middle of the park.
"I can't dance, but it will be fun to watch."
As Tutla looked around, Piri and Nogwaja walked onto the dance floor.
Welcome, friends,
said Piri.
Nogwaja and I are happy to be your hosts. So please, enjoy the party.
The animals cheered and talked to each other happily. Everyone ate the delicious food and drank fresh water from the stream.
"Wow, what a lovely party,"
said Tutla. Then Nogwaja stepped forward and said,
"Listen, everyone, our favorite time has arrived. Come, join me. It's time to dance."
All the animals gathered on the dance floor. They shouted as the music started playing. Tutla walked towards a corner to sit down, but Nogwaja stopped her.
"Wait, where are you going, Tutla? Come, join the dancing." "Hi, come on, Tutla. You're missing out. This is the best part of the party."
Piri added as she directed Tutla to the dance floor. Tutla was sweating. She had never danced before. She was too tall to dance, but she did not want to disappoint Nogwaja and Piri, so she joined on the other animals. Tutla was bumping into everyone. She almost fell over her own long legs as she tried to dance.
"Hey, Tutla, what are you doing? You nearly knocked over the meerkat, and you almost stood on Fudu the tortoise's shell,"
scolded Nogwaja.
It's just that I can't dance, Nogwaja. I should rather sit down and watch,"
answered Tutla as she felt very embarrassed.
"But you accepted the invitation to the party, Tutla. And the best part of the party is dancing. Just try to be a bit more careful,"
said Nogwaja. Tutla didn't know what to do. She wanted to make Nogwaja and Piri happy, but her dancing was causing chaos. Animals scattered as she lashed and scrambled across the dance floor. Finally, Tutla decided it was best to go home.
"Thank you very much for inviting me,"
Tutla said to Nogwaja and Piri as she slunk off home. She felt very sad and knew that she would never be invited to the party again. But to her surprise, Nogwaja and Piri arrived at her house the next day.
"We're here to apologize, Tutla. We are so sorry you felt embarrassed. We didn't know that you couldn't dance,"
said Nogwaja.
"Giraffes can't dance. Our legs and necks are too long,"
said Tutla.
"Well, even though you can't dance, we would still love to include you in our party,"
said Piri.
"Would you please be our party manager, Tutla? You can write the invitations and help us organize the party,"
said Nogwaja.
Oh my gosh. Yes, of course. I'd love to be your party manager,"
said Tutla enthusiastically. From that day on, Nogwaja and Piri's summer parties were even better. Tutla was an excellent party manager. And one thing that they all agreed on was that if an animal couldn't dance, they didn't have to. But they were still welcome to the party. And so we come to the end of another Nalibali story time. Today's story was called Giraffe Cannot Dance, written by Lorato Trock. Did you know that reading and telling stories to children at home can help them do better at school? If you want free stories to read to your children or for your children to enjoy on their own, visit Nalibali website www.nalibali.org or Mobi site www.nalibali.mobi. You will find stories in 11 South African languages, as well as tips for reading and sharing stories with your children to grow their potential. Also look out for the bilingual Nalibali Reading for Enjoyment supplements with great children's stories and activities available in newspapers. Nalibali, it starts with a story.
What a day. Time for that face mask. Leave the face mask on for 2 minutes. 2 minutes? That's not even enough time for it to work. I can't even send an email in 2 minutes or make a cup of coffee.
With Santam, 2 minutes is enough to insure your car online. When you're fully protected with the expert insurer, you're free to live in the moment, not in the worry. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
Festive season is around the corner. Celarity hooray! Unlike most, Paul, I don't sweat going home because I have a Nedbank Just Invest account. So I'll be up this festive season. No borrowing, guys. Even you, Mr. Voiceman.
Must be nice to be you, Mabel. Mara, you can also be like Mabel and earn up to 8.5% interest. Open yours via the Money app in under 2 minutes. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. Promo rates apply. Visit nedbank.co.za for more info.
Back-to-back Women's T20 World Cup runners-up, the Proteas face England. They both want to walk away from Buffalo Park with big smiles. What a summer without cricket. This is the first Women's T20 international contest, where summer cricket comes alive. South Africa clashes with England on Sunday 24 November at 2 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and reports on various SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
My name's Michael Fontaine. I'm 16. I have difficulty paying attention in class, so I fell behind. That's why my parents moved me to UCT Online High School. I can't thank them enough. Their flexible learning means I can take classes when it suits me, so I get ahead and stay ahead. Visit uctonlinehighschool.com to learn more. Applications close 29 November 2024.
The SAFM Playwriting Competition is back. After receiving hundreds of entries last year from South African writers of different ages and ethnic groups sharing their stories, now the time is yours. It's your story. You decide. SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound, the theatre of the mind, and to create a 1-hour radio play in English. Get writing now and submit your play before the 3rd of February 2025 for a chance to win one of 3 large cash prizes. For more information, visit safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Stages, pages, screens, and more on The Full Circle.
She's dying. She's dying at the hands of someone she loves, someone that's going to protect her. She's dying from the hollow walls of silence because says anything. I'm not going to let her be another statist. Hey, please, can you help me find her so we can get her the protection that she needs before it's too late? I'm not going to let her be another statist. Hey, please, can you help me find her so we can get her the protection that she needs before it's too late?
All right, opening up this last segment with a bit of a sound bite from the short film Nokuthula is Missing. And of course, that was a project that was undertaken by our guest this afternoon. Palisa Buyeye joins us now. An actress, a producer, a director, an award-winning filmmaker who's won the 2024 JCS Young Creators International Emmys Award for the short film Nokuthula is Missing. So I guess we first have to say congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming through.
Thank you so much for having me.
Only but a pleasure. All right, before we get into you, so we just heard a tiny snippet.
Yeah.
Tell us about the project Nokuthula is Missing.
Yes. So Nokuthula is Missing is a short film that it's a symbolic call for change, and it highlights the urgency of reform that is needed within the justice system, and its despondency and the way it perpetuates violence. It is more than anything, we wanted to question, where do we go, where do we find Nokuthula or peace, if not in the hands of those that are meant to protect us? We all know the cases in South Africa where it's like police officers or the justice system, they don't take cases of gender-based violence seriously. So we just wanted to speak about that and kind of shine a light on that to ask, like, what happens now? Where do we actually go? Yeah.
Very important story, and obviously one that has global resonance because it secured you the win for the JCS Young Creators International Emmys Award.
Yeah.
Tell us about the significance of that, because anytime we hear the word Emmy in anything, suddenly our eyes like open up wide and we're like, okay, what's coming next?
Yes, so the JCS International Young Creatives International Emmy Award, basically so the international Emmys are basically the Emmys that recognize filmmakers across the globe outside of the USA, right? So this specific award is for young creatives like myself, so individuals that are still making it into the industry as like a young filmmaker type of thing. So the competition was open from around July. We submitted in October. So we had to adapt basically a 1-minute film that captures the essence of stand up for peace, creating a dialogue and understanding, right? So basically filmmakers across the world would interpret it differently to what war is in their respective country. So obviously we found that gender-based violence is one of the biggest threats in our country. So we wanted to create a film about that. So the competition basically initially the first round, it was open to public voting. So we got our community, we campaigned it, got our family, our friends to vote. And then ultimately it was selected by a jury of executive producers, showrunners and filmmakers within the International Academy of Television Arts and Science, which is the Emmys.
Yes.
So it's I guess the meaning, you asked, like, what does that mean? It's crazy. It's so surreal. The film was low budget, so the fact that a jury of like such big people kind of saw our vision, saw the story that we were trying to tell, and recognized us for that is just it's out of this world.
Listen, but I find in film, some of the most interesting films that have gone on to win Oscars and have global dominance and recognition are really authentic stories that have even been told with iPhones,
Literally.
Competing with $10 million budget productions, because essentially it's about the story that you're telling and the resonance of that story and the quality and authenticity of that story.
Yeah, and you find that creativity, I guess, when there's zero budget, there's so much creativity because you have to literally squeeze as many resources as you can. There's so much room to sort of like play and sort of, come up with ideas, come up with things, because you have to make up for the budget that you don't have.
Yeah.
So yeah, it basically, and I think it also opened our eyes, because you're so right that it's like so many great films are told with like an iPhone or told with zero backing and across the world. And it's like, just creatives, a lot of the times we hold ourselves back thinking, okay, I need the funding, I need the resources, I need a co-sign from another director or producer before I make this thing, when in the end filmmaking is just an exercise of perspective, and your perspective is valid and honest, and it is worthy to see the light of day no matter how much you have, to make it happen. Yeah.
Oh, quotable. We must start a bank of quotables. Filmmaking is just about
exercise of perspective.
There we go.
Yeah.
Ooh, we need to bank that. And tell me this: when one is a young filmmaker, is there freedom that comes with the fact that there isn't really an expectation? There isn't a necessary success that you are chasing, or a brand that you've built for yourself that now must be maintained, and does that allow you the freedoms and the space to breathe, and even through the mistakes, just find your own authentic perspective and who you are in the field and through the work?
Yeah, I think there really is. You're so right, because it's like no one knows, you haven't done anything, so it's like there's no expectation. But for me, the challenging thing was I worked as a journalist for a very long time. Had written for some of the biggest publications in the country. Also, my company is a PR and a production company, so we also have the PR side of things. So I think there was fear of sort of failing in this aspect, because it's like people kind of knew me for something else, because people tend to obviously box you, that type of thing. So I think there is freedom in, I guess, being a new face, having a new perspective, and start coming out like fresh. But I think with me there was that fear of like, okay, I'm pivoting, even though there's not really a pivot. This is the main goal. This is what I've always wanted to do. But there was that fear of I'm pivoting, and what if it doesn't work out? Then it's like, it's kind of embarrassing because you've done other stuff. Yeah, but you see, and that's true.
You're young.
And sometimes the industry can be so unforgiving. But I think I've started to take on that belief and that idea and that thought system of, you know what, I'm doing this for the first time. Yes, I've done journalism. Yes, I've done PR, and yes, it's all storytelling. But I'm filmmaking. Filmmaking it's my first time being a filmmaker, so it's okay to suck. It's okay to not be perfect at your first try. And that's what a lot of people actually said to me, because I was so apologetic with this film, saying, ugh, it's low budget. I wish the lighting was better. This was better. This was, and everyone was like, it's your first film. Like, there is. And I mean, it won us a JCS International Emmy. So I've started to be forgiving to myself, and honestly, just like you said, just adopting that idea that I'm young and it's okay to not be perfect on your first try.
Absolutely. And also, as Brene Brown always says, unless you are the man in the ring, there's very little room for you to be judging the guy who's actually getting in the mud and getting his face palmed and pulverized every single day.
100%. And I love that you use that, because it's like, for the longest of times, I felt as a journalist and writing reviews and, interviewing other people, I've always been the man outside of the ring and, critiquing. And now that I'm finally in it, it's so different. I look at other creatives and other artists so differently that it's so eye-opening.
Does it give you a different perspective of the world?
It does, 100%. It does. Like, it does. I have so much respect for anyone that just tries.
Yeah.
I understand more than anything, just especially in South Africa, like the odds are so against us often at times, especially in the industry. So it has given me such a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
What
comes with this award? I mean, besides the fact that it's great for the ego, because it is a big deal award.
Yeah.
It does come with international eyeballs, like you said. It's the younger creatives now sort of getting that stamp of endorsement and approval by folks who've made it internationally, who've got awards on mantles, and film credits as long as the arms, who now essentially have said, Palisa Buyeye, you are the next cohort of international filmmakers.
Oh my gosh.
Well, that's what they've said. You know what I mean? So, and from a perspective of, besides that, which means so much to a young creative, does it also provide you the opportunity to then maybe scale up the film? Is there funding that comes with it, mentorship that comes with it, resource that you can then access to make sure that the next project is on an even bigger, grander level.
Yeah. So the win does come with some resources to assist with your filmmaking journey going forward. So certain software for filmmaking.
Wonderful.
MacBook, which is so cool. And then we actually have a meeting with the Academy. So crazy to say that. Early December. So it has created sort of a network pool of other artists and creatives that will get to possibly network with and work with. And then there's a possibility of also going to New York next year for the International Emmy Awards.
Wonderful.
Next year November. So last year's winners are flying out this November as the ceremony is happening on the 25th of November, and then possibly next year it will be this year's winners.
I love it for you. And I mean, if you're watching us streaming, you see my little smirk when she says that she's got a meeting with the Academy, because these meetings can possibly lead to incredible things. Right? And I think this is what any young filmmaker wants. It's just a foot in the door for them to be able to build on and really just have an incredible career. I mean, what comes next for you? More stories to be told?
Yes, 100%. So we actually, and this also builds on your question before. So we're looking at doing an anthology series of Nokuthula's Missing, because we believe Nokuthula is you, is me. It's literally every single woman in South Africa that's just looking for peace. So we'll be developing Nokuthula's Missing, this current one, which stars Lihlo Ngubo from Blood Legacy and Champions. We will be lengthening it. It'll still be short form, and then we'll be adding 2 other short films, sort of making an anthology series. We want to sort of show that gender-based violence is so speaking on the same theme of calling for reform and change within the justice system, but we also want to reflect how gender-based violence isn't just this one thing that happens. It happens on a spectrum, and the microaggressions that happen on a daily or what add to this threat and ultimately to femicide. So we are actually looking for funding for that. So if anyone is listening and is looking to invest in a young JCS International Emmys winner, please do so. So we're working on that currently, and then there's also a whole lot of other work that I'm in the archives that I'm trying to bring back to life. Also wanted to get back in front of the camera, and
listen, there's more money to be made behind the camera.
I know. Well, both,
stay there, stay behind the camera, forget front of camera, stay behind it, and become the next Ava DuVernay, and do, you know what I mean, do amazing things, never mind being on the covers of magazines.
But you did it. You paved the way for us.
This is why I'm speaking from experience.
I
speak from experience that you must stay behind the scenes. That's where the money, the glitz and the glam, come on. We want the real money. Are these the kinds of stories that you want to tell? The kind of stories that really just center the lived experience of women, of black women in particular?
So yes. So I believe art is meant for change and is meant for conversations. So 100%. I also was raised by a single mother, and I come from an army of matriarchs. I mean, my uncles were very present, but I've known the power of black women since I was a kid. So I genuinely want to reflect stories that help them heal, that give them a voice, and that also celebrate them. So I don't necessarily only want to create stories, that are so somber and hard hitting. I also want to reflect contemporary fun stories that come out of our country, that surround young black women. So I have a range.
Love it. Well, the landscape and the environment is prime and ready for a whole diversity of stories to be told about black women in particular. So we are, as you said, we are multi-layered, multifaceted. Yes. Every time I say multifaceted, in the back of my head I think of an incredible black woman. Shout out to Fatu, who I met in Fatu Sengho, who's an activist, a director, creator, an old school school hip hop head in her 60s.
Yeah.
She can recite any hip hop song, and she always used to say, as black women, we are multifaceted with her Senegalese accent. So I'm all for those stories. It was lovely to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming through. Congratulations on this big win. It really is something incredible. The International Young Creatives Emmy Award for that short film, Noktula is Missing. So remember that name, Palisa Buyeye. She is a filmmaker, producer, director, and an actress in her own right, and slowly carving her way in world dominance. That is where we leave it from our end today. Ashraf Gada is coming through, no doubt. He will be picking up on a lot of the activities that are happening right now. Still Fontaine, if you're on the 24-hour news networks, you can obviously see all the visuals there with all those ministers having descended in the area as they try, quote unquote, the terms that have been used to flush out those illegal miners. For myself and my team, it's been an incredible week. We are going to pop some champers this weekend and celebrate our nomination in the Radio Awards 2024. And we'll keep you posted as to whether or not we bring it home this year around. It's been how many years on the station now? 3 years, 3 nominations, 1 win. So let's see if we can make it 2 wins. And we'll keep praying to the praying gods. We've got a long way to go before we know who won what. But have an incredible weekend. Be safe if you're going to be out on the roads. Inshallah, God willing, we get to do it again next week.
Thank you, Bridget. Top stories at 3. Case against diamond dealer's wife postponed and 4 police officers to appear in court for theft. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana and a very good afternoon. The bail application of diamond dealer Louis Liebenberg's wife Desiree has been postponed to Thursday next week. The couple have appeared in the Bronkhorstspruit Magistrate Court in Pretoria along with the 7 other co-accused. The case relates to a scam in which investors were swindled out of more than 4 billion rand. They were allegedly duped into investing into Liebenberg's company Terramix, which traded as Forever Diamonds and Gold, and another company called Forever Zircon. Calvin Dudla reports.
Louis and Desiree Liebenberg appeared together in the dock. However, Liebenberg did not apply for bail. Desiree told the court that if released on bail, she will not flee the country and committed to cooperating fully with investigators. The Liebenberg 7 co-accused who were also in court are out on bail. The accused face charges including 42 counts of fraud, theft, racketeering and money laundering. The state is opposing Desiree's release on bail, arguing that she will threaten witnesses and that she is a flight risk. Calvin Lutla, SABC News, Bronkhorstspruit.
The DA in KwaZulu-Natal says the Go Back to Bombay slur made by an unidentified councillor at a Tekwini Full Council meeting last week was a vicious and calculated attack against the South African Indian community. The slur was held